My loves. Hello, hello, hello. My name is Dustina. This is Spiritual Boujee Astrology, and we're going to take a look at the major astrological transits for November of this year, November of 2024. Now, before we do any type of breakdown, I want to go ahead and announce a special that is going to be going on from now until the end of the year, and that is everybody is getting new client pricing. For your very first session, when you come to me, if you book an hour-long one-on-one session, or if you book a 90-minute one-on-one session, you get a discounted rate. Hour long is 35 minutes, 90 minutes is $50. However, now I'm going to extend that rate to everybody. And that's one of those things that if you have somebody in your life that you want to buy a gift certificate for, or if you've got other things going on, you need to book extra time with me. I want to make sure that I'm as accessible as possible for everybody at any time, and not just during like little blanket flash sale times like I have been for the last few months. So there's that. Everybody gets new client pricing, $35 for an hour, $50 for 90 minutes. We can go over your natal chart. We can go over your family's natal chart. We can go over anything that we need to do in regards to relationship, business, health, you name it. That is what those sessions are good for. I don't just do like a niche area. We are going to look at the big picture, the big scope. Because whenever you think about the big picture, the energy of the next 2 months has already been underway for a while. And whenever we get into the month of November, we will also be getting into the start of a Mercury retrograde. There's going to be needs. There's going to be stuff going on. There's going to be extra things that just don't make sense given the primary aspect of what will be happening through the months of November and December. Before I can go into those, though, I want to explain something. And I actually kind of hinted about this in the week ahead forecast. And we're going to be going into it this month, right at the first of the month, with 4 signs in total, 4 planets in total. And what am I talking about? Mutual reception. Now, in astrology, a mutual reception is a house swap. I'm at your place, you're at mine. You call me for help, I'm going to tell you where everything is. I call you for help, you're going to tell me where the batteries are, where the extra keys are, where this is. Like, we are in a house swap. And right at the beginning of the month, we start this 2 times over. One will only last until the end of Scorpio season. The second one, oh no, this is going to last until the beginning of January. So let's talk about the first one. Mars, because you know I like to gripe about Mars. Oh, we actually start the month in a new moon in Scorpio. First transit out the gate, November 1st, new moon in Scorpio. And over the course of that weekend following the new moon, the rulers of Scorpio are going to hit an opposition. We're going to have an opposition of Mars and Pluto. Now, if you've listened to me for a while, I have talked about this at length. And there is something about the Mars-Pluto opposition that I have felt ties back to previous times. I covered that in the week ahead forecast also. The week ahead going into this week where November 1st starts. And that is previous stuff that we started to do, connections that we made from January to June, depending on the transit we're talking about, is going to come back around. But in specific, we're talking about Mars and Pluto. Now, the week of Valentine's Day, February 14th, we had our Mars-Pluto conjunction at 0 degrees of Aquarius. But the thing about that one is, like, for a lot of people, that was a blip on the radar because over a month's time, we had multiple conjunctions to Pluto at 0 degrees of Aquarius. We had a lot of things going on. So that first conjunction for a lot of people was kind of a blip. Later on June 11th, we had a square between Mars and Pluto. Mars had just went into Taurus. Pluto was already retrograde. They were going in 2 different directions, but we had some type of tension and reaction where people very much went 2 different ways. 2 different ways. And since then, there's been a lot of upheaval. There's been a lot of distressing news. new information coming to light, triggers to old wounds and old situations and old things that are now going to come to a bit of a test. And the next 2 months for many people are going to be a test of whether you've learned your lesson, a test of whether you are willing to stand up for yourself, a test to do something differently than we did it in the past. And in a lot of ways, that is how we're starting the month of November. For some people, we will be starting the month enraged. Potentially, it's a Mars-Pluto opposition. Determined. Optimistic. There's a reason I'm saying optimistic, so put a pin in that one. We'll come back to it. But we will have a different level of insight that starts to erupt right in those first few days of November. And then it's going to cause many of us to take an action. Because something is done, air quotations on done, that Mars-Pluto opposition is happening at 29 degrees of Capricorn and Cancer, ends of signs. So something has to come to a close, but it's the first in the series of 3. You've pushed my buttons for the last time. Now you're going to see another side. Now something else is going to happen. Now you're going to feel a whole different level of accountability. Now you're going to see something change from what has concluded. Some of y'all are going to have a glow up. That'd be great. Some of y'all are going to show your ass. That's going to be hit or miss. Some of y'all are going to expose certain situations and certain people depending on the depth and the magnitude of the Mars-Pluto opposition. Because once Mars goes into Leo, Mars starts mutual reception. I didn't drift. I knew where I was going with that. Some of y'all know I get a little drifty. Mars goes into Leo, and for the remainder of Scorpio season, we are in mutual reception. As a Scorpio rising, this is me telling other Scorpio risings and Leo risings, sometimes we are going to be the problem. Sometimes we are going to have to stand up for ourselves. Sometimes we are going to have to put a bitch in her place, his place, whatever. That can be a very gender neutral term. Just to be clear, very gender neutral term. Okay. Put somebody in their place. Now, the thing about once Mars goes into Leo is he's only going to go 6 degrees over the course of an entire month. He's going very, very slow. And he's been going slow since the Aries full moon. If you look at the Aries full moon, the degree of where Mars is to the Scorpio new moon, both Mars-ruled moon cycles, by the way. You look at that, there was only a 6-degree movement. Over the course of the entire month of November, there will only be a 6-degree movement. And each step forward at first will feel strong and confident, and it will feel like something is falling into place. But when mutual reception ends and we go into Sagittarius season, which has a whole extra layer to it, so we're getting there, mutual reception will end. And then there is a level of frustration, aggravation, stagnation, boiling like energy as Mars starts to station. I've watched enough people during Mars retrogrades when the planet is starting to station. And when somebody feels like there's no progress in a certain direction, that something's not going in a certain way, something flips in Mars retrogrades. People can flip. But there's more than one flip, and that flip doesn't even start until December, because Mars doesn't go retrograde until December 6th. However, there will be another flip that happens beforehand, and it takes us into the other planets that will be in mutual reception. And that is Mercury and Jupiter. Now, Jupiter in a mercurial sign, so Gemini or Virgo, in this case we are discussing Gemini, is said to be in his detriment. He ain't happy here. Now, if I had a choice between Jupiter and Gemini and Jupiter and Virgo, I actually pick the Gemini side. because the expansion of knowledge and air tends to work better than trying to expand tangible things, which would be Virgo. Both have their pros and cons. Both have to do extra diligent amount of work to be sure and to be careful. But that's not going to be easy, because also at the beginning of the month, there's so much stuff that just starts right at the first 7 days of November. Mercury goes into Sagittarius. Now I'm going to do a Mercury retrograde video. I want to state that from the beginning. And I will put more emphasis on what I'm feeling between these two in there. But I will break some of it down here. Jupiter in Gemini, negative Jupiter. Go back to school. We're doing mathematics. Negative Jupiter. Mercury in Sagittarius is Mercury in his detriment. Negative Mercury. But when these two are in each other's signs, we enter mutual reception. We have a different understanding. We are voicing something about the other side that we know. You're in my house. I know you. I know what I know. I know the rules. I know the place that you're in better than you do. Positive, a mutual reception. Now, mathematically speaking, you go back to school, then back to grade school, a double negative is a positive. However, the negatives don't just cancel out based off of that mutual reception, because we have a retrograde in Mercury that will start the week of Thanksgiving. And that is going to add an extra layer and an extra depth of things that we don't know. Very confused energy, very discombobulated energy, very conflated energy. Mercury does not necessarily do well in Sagittarius. He is loud, he is bold, he is boisterous. And with Jupiter being in mutual reception, that loud, bold, and boisterous, that's going to have a whole different meaning based off of the layers and levels of things that get revealed. We will have one or two things that get revealed while Mercury is direct. Humor me on the number. It could be more. It's really going to kind of depend on your personal karma, by the way. And then once Mercury turns retrograde on November 26th, there's another turn and another layer, another level to the energy where things just don't make sense. People will not be thinking clearly. And where we start the month, in some ways, feeling pissed off, enraged, determined, here's that way, optimistic, hopeful, boastful, when Mercury turns retrograde, our opinion of something or someone is going to change. And because that opinion has changed, it will also impact Mars. And once we go into Sagittarius season, which is right around when Mercury turns retrograde, we will feel hesitancy. We will see the flips in certain people, the flips in the dialogue, the flips in situations, shit just not making sense. And if we would just get a hold of ourselves and put more focus in what we're trying to do, we could come up with a solution. But for a lot of people, those solutions won't come through until December. And by then, certain people will have burnt bridges. For a lot of us, the stuff that starts to pick up in November is also going to be picking up on stuff that's already occurred. Now, the thing about this Mercury retrograde that I keep picking up in my meditation, and this has been specific since Jupiter's went in Gemini. I told some of you this in your one-on-ones, but I haven't really said this on the channel before, and that is I feel like every Mercury retrograde while Jupiter is in Gemini, and the upcoming one is number 2, every one of them is connected in some way. And that too will become more apparent in December. The decisions that we make, the situations that we get into, the exposures and the things that come out that are loud and pronounced, it will be an extra layer of change and shift from before. And whatever we've dealt with in these two Mercury retrogrades, the one in August, because all of August basically was a Mercury retrograde, this one here, which will be all in Sagittarius, and the one that we will have in March and April, and I don't want to get into that quite yet, so just that's over there. And the one that we have then, all of them are connected in some way, and they all connect to Jupiter in Gemini. We have not had an outer planet in a mercurial sign in a very long time. So seeing that connection isn't something that many of us have had to deal with before, but it can also give us a clue and an expectation of what to think about later. Now I'm kind of really putting out some big picture stuff. When Uranus goes into Gemini, because that starts next year. That starts next summer. Starts, not complete. And whatever that stuff is going to be, it's very different from where we're at right now. Now, again, a lot of what we start to deal with now is picking back up on stuff from the springtime. Some of that has to do with the Mars Pluto, but the other part of that actually has to do with Saturn. Good old daddy Saturn. Over the course of the entire month of November, Saturn will be at 12 degrees of Pisces. He reached it right before the month started, starting to slow down. By the time we get to the full moon in Taurus, that planet will have turned direct. And that's going to be very interesting when we get there. Because by the time we get to that full moon in Taurus, again, that is the day that Saturn turns direct, Saturn will also be hosting Venus in Capricorn. There will be a shift in responsibilities. There will be a shift in who we trust. There will be a shift in partnerships. There will be a shift in roles based off of the confidence, based off of what we're starting to see, what we're starting to understand, what we can adjust for. Certain opportunities will present themselves. Some of us will be given opportunities, given promotions, given an idea, given money in certain ways, given something to try to make the best of a situation. And the best of that situation will require an immediate level of revitalization, repurposing, restructuring of some sort. There's so much energy to November, and a lot of people will not be sitting still. You just won't. There will be things that come up that do not make sense. There will be decisions that will get made in the first half of November that by the time we get to January, we will not feel the same way about our decisions. Certain realities will click in. Opinions about certain people will change. The vibration is changing. And in the midst of all of the change that we'll be going through, we got one extra one. And it happens 4 days after Saturn turns direct, 4 days after that full moon in Taurus, and that is Pluto. Between now and the 19th of November, Pluto will be wrapping up his final lessons, his final course of whatever our karmic energy has been about, tied to Pluto in Capricorn. We are going to be overcoming something. We will have an energy that pushes us to level up. And some of us will be determined to level up. Other people, when the water gets hot, and the test energy really kicks in, they are going to fold. There will be some things we start in November that they will stick. And the majority of that is going to have to do with the fact that Pluto is going into Aquarius. Saturn will be turning direct. The Mercury retrograde will be all in one sign, but he won't backtrack into another sign. Hopeful expansion will be a very big energy. And by the time we get to January, he will go forward into Capricorn. So there is necessary restructuring and revitalization. But what you will also see is because of all of this change and movement and growth, that on the other side, something or someone can't continue, won't stay in place, can't handle the frustration, can't handle the energy. Their bodies, whether it has to do with their actual body or their mental or emotional health, they will not stick with it. And you're going to hear me continuously say these things over the course of the month of both November and December. Pay attention when people start acting funny, especially later in the month. And if you're trying to do stuff around Thanksgiving, here in America, it will be Thanksgiving. I'm pretty sure in Canada, it's Boxing Day, and overseas for everyone else, like that's what I'm talking about is the last week of November. I don't know if you guys have holidays during that time, but that last full week of November, expect frustrations, expect misunderstandings, expect the confusion, expect for people to be heavily inflated by certain concepts and ideas, whether they're truthful or not, real or not. But whatever we're starting to get into, only so much of it will be new. We're folding things in, old stuff into new stuff. By having certain reactions and understanding from the old stuff, now we're going to take new actions to do something differently going into new stuff. And for some people, that's going to be good. For other people, it's going to be harder. What I have felt like over the course of the last few weeks of October going into November is that we had all of those shakeups to prepare us for an obstacle course. In the last 2 weeks of October, this first full week of November, all feels like the start of an obstacle course. Everything that we've gone throughout October is to lead us into something that we will be starting and shaping and expanding and getting into in springtime, specifically March and April, more so April, but March and April. But each of this energy of the next 6 months feels like layers of an obstacle course. They're levels to the same race, but each part is different. November and December feels like one part of the obstacle course. January, February feels like another part. Then the bridge timeline of late February, all of March, and going into the first 2 weeks of April feels like a final home stretch relay race of trying to get to a finish line. And in my opinion, astrologically speaking, numerically speaking, putting a date on the finish line, April 13th. Mercury will be direct. All the planets will be direct on April 13th. And that will be right after the full moon in Libra and Venus ends her retrograde. Like April 13th looks amazing. And that's when we finish the race. What is the obstacle that you're choosing right now? Some of you spent the last few months warming up, getting placed, and now you're at the start of something. And your personal choices make a very big indicator as to how the next 6 months are going to go. Are you going to go the easy route? Avoid everybody and everything, put your head in the sand and try not to talk to anybody until April? Some of y'all have threatened me with it, so I know that some of you are going to try. I don't think a lot of people can. Are you going to go more of an intermediate? Are you going to play it safe, pay attention to your surroundings, make as little decisions as possible, and let other people do the shit and let them explode or have their changes, and you're there as just kind of like a support? Or are you going to be the one making changes? Do you feel at the beginning of November compelled to be the one that makes all of the changes? Are you going to go through the hard obstacle course? Are you prepared to take all of the steps necessary to achieve something? The next 6 months feels like an obstacle course for many, many people. And I've just started saying that to people in their private sessions. That's what it feels like. And we don't know the end of the race and what all of this is preparing us for until we get into April. We're at the start. We're at the start. Okay. So if you've never listened to a month ahead forecast, this is not like my full moon, new moon ones. This is not like my weekly one. I go back and forth with the charts. You'll see my face a little bit more. I will explain each one. And the whole idea is to, again, prepare you for the energetic weather that is coming through, because there's a lot coming through. Oh, and this one will feed into December, so I'm not sugarcoating anything. Yay, here we go. All right, November 1st. And what is the first thing we deal with at 7:47 a.m. Central Standard Time? I got this at 7:30. It is close enough for government work. We have the new moon in Scorpio. Now, this new moon is perfecting, again, at 7:47 a.m. Central Standard Time, but it is also at the start of the Mars-Pluto opposition going exact. This actually goes exact on the 3rd. So I feel like as we go into November, and this is going to be over the course of a weekend, is that we have certain things that fall into place, either Halloween Day, November 1st itself, or the human effect is it's going to be November 4th, 5th, 6th, going into the election and all that stuff. So yay. Okay, moving along. This new moon has this opposition between Mars and Pluto hitting. Again, this will be the first of 3, the last based off of this sign. So there is something that is meant to come to a close and a new beginning simultaneously. The transfer of power. It's a power up energy. It's a level up energy. It's a challenge energy. And for a lot of people, I do feel like you're going to go through this energy going, I'm not going to take this shit anymore. And somebody will push buttons, and the person that comes out afterwards is going to have a whole different level of voice and confidence that one side will not be anticipating. Now, there's a reason I say that, and I'm going to bump this a day to November 2nd. We've got a couple things that are going to happen all on the 2nd. One, around 2:45 in the morning, Mercury is going to enter a trine with Mars. Now, this is important, and I will actually talk about this in the Mercury retrograde video. These two enter an exact trine on the 2nd, but at the end of the Mercury retrograde, Mercury is going to try to re-enter a trine with Mars that will not perfect. So I do feel like there is something that we start to do. We make an agreement to overcome and do that some people, by the time we get to January, it's not going to stick. It's not going to stick. It's not going to stick. Somebody's going to backtrack. Somebody's going to have something happening in their life. Somebody's going to get cold feet. Somebody's going to have to say, I can't continue right now. This other thing has occurred, but I'll let you know when this is over because I need to put my focus over here. Like, there's humans effect to that. Humans. There is a human effect to that. And why I'm saying that, because it's going to be different for everybody. And some people will be charging full steam ahead while another person has to take a back seat. Whether that's because they're a chicken shit or because something is actually going on, that time will tell. You know, time will tell. Moving along. Okay. Now on the 2nd, it's not just Mercury trine Mars, but it's also Mercury sextile Pluto. Not a heavy energy. It can be one extra layer that triggers the full amount of energy of the opposition. Like we get some kind of news. The human effect is those last few days of October going into the first few days of November. We get some type of news. We have some type of meeting, some type of outside source that clicks parts of this transfer, parts of this level up, parts of this adjustment and change. And then hours later, still on the 2nd, Mercury is going to go into Sagittarius. And here you go. That actually goes exact around 2:18 p.m. So I'm a little bit past it right here. You can see Mercury's entry into Sagittarius. And this is where he will be until January. January 9th. This is where he's going to be. This is going to be a long 2 months. And sometimes it's going to be good. Sometimes it's going to be whack. Just whack. I don't have a better way to describe it. You're going to see and hear some things about people you have never heard before and be like, God damn. So there are going to be certain levels of truth and information and expansion and knowledge and ooh, there's so much going on. And mutable signs, I am sorry. This is going to be a hellacious 2 months for you. Mercury's in Sagittarius. Yay! So mutable signs. It's Virgo risings, Gemini risings, Pisces risings, and Sagittarius risings. Oh, so there's that. Now, on the 3rd, this is when we get the exact opposition between Mars and Pluto. I have beat this transit to to death. Like it's there. Like we've had so much conversation about this. If you are going through the entire week, Halloween, the 1st of November, and each day you just kind of feel something kicking in, you're feeling some type of emotion, some type of drive, some type of determination, some type of ambition, some type of frustration, something that everybody's in different places. If you are feeling something going into this day, but nothing's going on, you can be more reactive. You can be a dick. Be prepared for that. We don't always have to be dicks, whether it's the spiritual dick or actual people being dicks. This is asshole energy. And not everybody is going to be warranted in that type of way. However, some of us are going to have something very pivotal, disruptive, chaotic, one last test, one last trigger of the old wound, the old scenario, and we will not handle it the way that we used to. We will not put up with nonsense the way that we used to. The reaction will be different. If you have been quiet, if you have been settled, if you have been calm, somebody pushes your buttons for the last time and they're going to know it's the last time because the person that comes out of you will not match what they think of you. That's going to be interesting in so many ways. Now, the other thing that's going to happen on the 3rd, and this is going to happen a little bit later into the evening, is Mars is going to go into Leo. But before Mars goes into Leo, we have one other thing that's occurring, and that is Venus's opposition to Jupiter. Now, Venus was the more dominant ruler of the most recent eclipse energy, but Jupiter was the ruler of the other. So we had an out of sign eclipse on September 17th, wrong month, but an out of sign eclipse on September 17th in Pisces, in Jupiter's sign. But the other side of that axis was that new moon in Libra, and that was the stronger of the two eclipses. And that was the energy that triggered Mars going into shadow. So a lot of whatever is starting to unfold the first week of November has already been going on for a while. It's either going back to those prior dates in the springtime based off of Saturn, or it can be based off of some of the things that popped up in eclipse season. Everybody's in different levels. Everybody's in different places. There can be hopefulness in this energy. There can be transformation in this energy. There can be healing in this energy. But Jupiter is retrograde. But by this time, we have some type of news, some type of information. This can be a promise. This can be hopeful. financially, fiscally helpful, destination changing. There is a shift November 3rd. And by the evening time, at 10 o'clock in the evening, this is 10:30, boom, Mars is now in Leo. And from here until the 21st, we will have mutual reception now for 2 sets of signs. Mercury and Jupiter between Sagittarius and Gemini. Mars and the Sun between Leo and Scorpio. Adjustments, changes, cardinal signs, you will not feel this as deeply because it's not necessarily in your main signs. It's not in your top 4, but that does not mean anything. I don't feel like anybody is immune to this because that Mars Pluto did start in Capricorn, even though they're still in opposition here. Mars has moved signs. There's a trigger of something. So I'm not taking cardinal signs off of the hot seat at all. But whenever it comes to the full spectrum of all of this, it's mutable first, fixed signs second, cardinal signs are last. Okay. Oh, now on the 4th, so you're just going a day, we're going to have a trine that actually happens between the Sun and Saturn. And this is actually perfecting real early in the morning between 11 and 12 p.m. Central Standard Time. So I've got this at the 10:30 mark. We're past the exact. But what's interesting to me is the fact that now that the Sun and Mars are in mutual reception, Mars was just in an opposition to Pluto, and Pluto is in Saturn's sign. There is a recognition of something that needs to turn around, of a shift in roles, of a shift in responsibility, of a shift in power, a shift with authority figures. There is an awareness of something that is clicking in, being understood, being expressed whenever the Sun goes through that trine with Saturn. And remember, anything that happens now for the next few weeks to Mars impacts the Sun. Anything that impacts the Sun is impacting Mars. Same thing with Mercury and Jupiter. Anything that impacts these two, it's also impacting the other one based off mutual reception. So there are layers and levels to what is occurring. Moving along. Oh, we have a lot of things that happen right there in the first few days of the year. There's going to be a lot of heated energy, a lot of frustration, a lot of pride, a lot of tension, a lot of determination, like I said before. And then we get to the 7th. Mercury enters shadow. So the first 5 days, 2nd, 3rd, 4th, 5th, 6th, Mercury is direct and Mercury is Mercury. On the 7th, earlier in the day, Mercury will be at 6 degrees. Mercury enters shadow. And all of the topics that led up into this energy is letting us know, like, now we're entering the timeline of layers and levels that we cannot completely understand because there will be stuff that we end up coming back to. And there will be a change of opinion, a change of ideas, a change of mindset. Okay. Mercury enters shadow on the 7th. On November the 9th, just bump this 2 more days, Venus will go through her exact square with Neptune. So you can see this here. Oh, nostalgia, yes. Doing something from the past, seeing someone from the past, absolutely. Running into someone and having some type of conversation that brings up old wounds and old emotions and old feelings, absolutely. There can be a shift in different ideas and opinions and a shift in plans. This in itself does not seem like the heaviest of energies, but there can be confusion whenever it comes to anything tied to Neptune. There could be lies, there could be fallacies, and there could be the attempt in some ways to, again, turn something around. You know somebody is lying. You know somebody's not been telling the truth. And there can be a push, again, to turn something around. And the reason I keep saying that part now is Neptune is stationing. And over the course of the next month, he will turn direct. He's not turning direct until December, but he is stationing. He ain't moving from 27 degrees. This is his spot. So there can be some things that we hear that we don't immediately accept them as truth. Like we are questioning, like, where did you get this information? Like, how did you hear about this? Where did you find this? What is this? And again, the one side might be struggling to believe what they see. Give them grace. It is fine. If they don't believe it, they don't know what to do, they're super confused, let them be that way. Give them the time to make up their mind. Do not push. Some of y'all ain't going to listen to me, but do not push. Okay. Now, on Veterans Day, on the 11th, right around lunchtime, Venus is going to enter Capricorn. I'm going to leave this on date. So you can see this right here. Again, this happened around 12:30 in the morning. Sorry, I thought it was 11:30 for just a second. But now Venus is in Capricorn. Venus is in Saturn's sign. And over the course of the next 10 days, we have a Saturnian responsibility shift and change, roles that will change, situations with our elders that will change and become our focus. Venus is now in Saturn's sign. Pluto is about to leave Saturn's sign. Saturn will be turning direct. And again, we're getting closer to the full moon and Venus' sign. So whenever we get to this part, there's a lot of things about elders, roles, government, bosses, CEOs, responsibility that become the focus in the conversation. And considering what's also going on in this time span is Mercury's first square to Saturn, the first of three. You can see this right here. It's not exact. It's actually going exact on the 12th, but you can see Mercury is building its first square to Saturn. There can be certain roles and responsibilities that we start to take up on that, again, might not stick later. Somebody is going to have the nerve to be surprised. Oh, a questioning, something is shifting, something is changing. Either you're not going to agree with what is coming through, what is being recognized, or you will at first. Okay. Okay. Oh, I'm going to keep bumping this. We're going to go ahead and get to the 15th. And that is going to be, just one more day. Saturn will be direct. And we have that full moon in Taurus. Yeah, closer to it right here. So I got this around 3:30 in the afternoon. It is basically exact. I think it goes exact at like 3:28. Yeah, that's what I have on my notes. So here's the sun, 24 degrees, 0 minutes. Here's the moon, 24 degrees, 1 minute. It's close enough. You can see it. This is a full moon in Venus' sign in a conjunction to Uranus. Exciting. Responsibility changes. Saturn just turned direct. Venus is in Saturn's sign during a Venusian full moon. Very tightly conjunct Uranus. There's excitement. There is unexpected things that were not planned, that were not anticipated. We can have a sudden change from another person that shifts the levels of communication that start to unfold over the next few days. But there is a shift. I will remind you that Mars is not moving quickly. He is slowing down. So there can also be a unexpected restlessness that can be through here. Anything that impacts the sun is also impacting Mars, so be aware of that. There can be a sudden restlessness that's in the energy that other people can have something changing, but another side is like they're stewing and they're boiling and they're not understanding certain things. They're questioning. They feel like something should be going faster than it is or faster than it has been. And that, again, it goes into Mars. If you are a Leo rising, you are going to feel this part the most. You are going to feel restless. You are going to feel anxious. You're going to feel everything that Cancer risings have been feeling since the beginning of September. but all very hyperized. All right. Moving this along. The exact opposition between the sun and Uranus is actually on the 16th. So bump this a day. You can see this right here. Uranus at 25 degrees 15. Here's the sun 25 degrees 1. We're a couple hours from when it actually goes exactly. It actually goes exact later in the evening. But you can see this right here. The moon will be in Gemini sign. So there it can be a lot of communication that is happening. Again, unexpected news, unexpected shifts in the vibration, announcements, these type of things, unexpected plans to travel, or unexpected things that pop up that require travel. You might not have a plan to be traveling at the 1st of November, but then certain things start to pop up throughout the month and you're like, oh crap, I gotta go. Oh crap, I gotta do this. I gotta try this. I gotta go in this direction. I gotta, da, da, da. We're trying to do something. Okay. Damn. Oh, not only will we have the sun's opposition to Uranus, but as we get into the 18th, we're going to have Mercury's first opposition to Jupiter. So you can see this right here. This actually happened around right after midnight. So like around 2:30, 3 a.m. Central Standard Time, this one exact. It's the first of 3 Mercury's opposition to Jupiter, and each one will be different. The second one will be during the retrograde on December 4th. There will be something about that December 4th date that actually ties back to August, which is another reason why I'm saying, like, hey, there's stuff from the last Mercury retrograde that can be a part of this Mercury retrograde, making everybody aware of that. Okay. And then the third and final one is actually going to be right after Christmas on December 27th. So pay attention to what is being discussed right here because there are layers and levels and rounds to it. Okay. The other thing that is happening whenever we go through that first opposition between Mercury and Jupiter is the trine between the Sun and Neptune. One person could be telling one side of the story, the other person doesn't believe it, the other person won't accept it, they won't tell their side of the truth. And given that we have this energy between the Sun and Neptune, there can be, again, things tied to fraud, lies, the fallacy, the things that are not clear, the things that are very confused. Some people, again, feeling very, very restless, and they don't like to be confused right now. They don't need to be confused right now. And there can be little sparks in the tension between people as this day goes on. But for other people, one might not be sparks. There can be confusion based off of where they're having to travel to unexpectedly, what they're having to take care of unexpectedly, what they're having to focus on unexpectedly, based off of this right here. Moving this along. On the 19th, Pluto re-enters Aquarius. And this actually happens a little bit earlier, but it's fine right here on the 3:30 time frame. Pluto goes back into Aquarius. The awareness, the power struggle, the dynamic of the past in some way, shape, or form, it's over. It's not the same. We're not recognizing it the same. We're not frustrated with it the same way. There is more shifts that are coming, but the weight of the Plutonian aspects of Pluto and Capricorn will start to lift after Pluto goes back into Aquarius. So we had 2.5 months of Pluto wrapping up Capricorn. And now certain things will feel very, very different when it comes to the way that you connect with people. Because Aquarius is the sign of people. Power within people will be recognizably different after the 19th. Okay. On the 21st, the sun goes into Sagittarius, and as soon as it goes into Sagittarius, it starts its sextile with Pluto. You can see this right here. This actually happens at 1:57 in the afternoon. So, and immediately, again, we have this energy that goes into a different understanding. Now, the one thing that does change whenever the sun goes into Sagittarius is it's going to end mutual reception with Mars. And I do feel a difference between Mars going slow in Leo, doing these things to be recognized, to be seen in a certain way. But then whenever the sun goes into Sagittarius, it doesn't feel quite the same way with Mars. Other people's acknowledgement, other people's focus is shifting. News is coming to light, more things is coming to light, more plans are starting to get enacted, and Mars is barely moving. Some people are going to get testy. Some people are going to be restless. Some people are not going to be doing well. And once we go into the sun in Sagittarius and we lose that part of the mutual reception, that Martian energy will become more volatile because it doesn't have the counterbalance. It doesn't have that level of attention that it had at the beginning of the transit. It's going to make some people cranky. Super, super cranky. Okay. Making that clear. The sun sextile to Pluto is not crazy. It's not heavy. There's a hopeful understanding. There's something that is meant to feel like we can put something correct, that we can put a different focus on something, but we can't do it all at once. And that's going to be a big part of the energy. Not only do we have the sextile between Sun and Pluto, but we also have the sextile between Venus and Saturn happening here. So there's a lot of, again, shift in roles, a shift in responsibility, a very big shift that comes through over the course of like a 10-day span between the 11th and the 21st, exactly what I said. And now that shift is more predominant. It's more in focus. It's more empowered. Okay. So, now something that's going to start on the 23rd, but it's not going to go exact until the 27th, is the trine between Mars and the sun. And this really signifies like Mars's freezing of something. There will be something that we feel very passionate about, empowered about through those days. That one person is going boastfully in one way. The sun is in Sagittarius. Sagittarius is high vibes, so confident, feeling a certain way type of energy. But Mars is stationing. Mars is in the sun sign. Do we feel confidence? Yes. Can we feel hopeful? Yes. Can we feel inspired? Yes. But when you go home at night and everything's still exactly the same, even though you went to a great TED Talk, do you feel as hopeful and confident and boastful? No. Restless. Mercury is also stationing. There's a restlessness in the energy. There is a stewing. There is confusion that will be building in the energy. And I'm making everybody aware of that. On the 25th, so in the middle of this Sun-Mars trine that's building, on the 25th, boom, boom, Mercury is going to turn retrograde. This is happening later in the evening, so I'm bumping this by hour to get you. There we go. So for me, this is happening somewhere between the 8:30 and 9:30 hours. You can see this here at 9:30. Here's Mercury now retrograde. Oh, and we still have this trine between Mars and the sun that is building, but is not exact yet. As something flips, as something changes, as something does not go to plan, again, the temptation, the possibility of frustration, being stubborn, being pig-headed, masculine energy not getting its way, Martian energy, so Aries rising, Scorpio risings, not getting their way, Leo risings, not getting their way, can start to be reactive because everything is boiling and stationing and settling. But simultaneously, over the last few days, Mercury has also been boiling and stationing, and Mercury rules our logical brain. The more somebody acts out of character over here, the harder it's going to be to focus. And then whenever Mercury does his flip, which is going to happen again on the 25th, it's going to make a big difference as to how the rest of the month is going to go and how we feel going into December. I don't know how I feel about this Mercury retrograde. I really don't. And I'll cover that more because we're almost done. I'll cover that more in the closing because I feel like there's going to be there's going to be so much stuff being said that we can't pick what's real. And we're literally going to have to let some shit hit the fan, let the dust settle to figure it out. Now, it is on the 27th, up in this 2 more days, that we do get our exact trine between Mars and the Sun. It actually happened around 2:30 in the morning. It's been building since the 23rd. We will be continuing to be in it all the way until the 30th. And ironically enough, the 30th, for some of you, not everybody, is going to be the new moon. For some people, it's going to be very, very late on the 30th. For other people, it's going to be early on the 1st. For me, it is actually December 1st when that new moon happens. So it's all coming down to time zone in that regard. So with all that being said, I'll put more focus on the new moon in Sagittarius in next month's video because for me, again, that's happening on December 1st. But the more and more confident things that we start to take on, the more and more determined things that we start to step into, the more and more we start to try to make things happen throughout the month. Some things will happen. Other things will not. And the better idea to look for is which transit is it coming in on? And I actually said this in the October 28th to November 3rd week ahead forecast. I said this then. If the things that are starting to come to fruition happen on the Mars transits, part of them are not going to stick. Part of them we have to backtrack. Why? Because Mars is going to go back into Cancer. He is going to backtrack. Now, that's some of it. However, if it comes in on the Mercury transits, it might need some tweaking. It might need layers and levels of understanding. But they can actually be more likely to stick because of that mutual reception with Jupiter. You know too much. You know how to make something work from behind the scenes. You know how to do something in a way other people don't know how to do. And that expansion of knowledge is going to have grace to it. And as we go through that last part of November when Mercury turns retrograde and the first part of December, because the majority of the retrograde is actually in December. And it's going to make Thanksgiving super fun for a lot of people. Super fun. Okay, it's going to make Thanksgiving very, very fun for a lot of people. But with all of the shift and change that's there, I don't know how I feel about the Mercury retrograde. Because for some people, if you are on the up and up, you've been doing everything from an honest standpoint, and something comes to light, some type of news, something it comes through in a certain way, and people don't know who to believe. If you are coming from a truthful point from the beginning, when the dust settles, the truth will prevail. However, Mars and Mercury going retrograde within days of each other is a 2-week difference, but in the big picture, the big scope of things, it's days. I don't know how I feel about it because for some people, I feel like a double negative can equal a positive, going back to what I was talking about in the beginning, going back to math. A double negative can equal a positive. Therefore, that Mercury retrograde in co-presence with Jupiter being retrograde is like, oh, look at this. Happy accidents. This double energy has bigger reward that can come through because of the mutual reception. And some people might have that. But it all comes down to personal karma and how much in alignment with this energy you are. And some people will not have happy accidents. It will not be double negative equals positive. No. It's going to be a double whammy because of Mars. Now, trying to depict and figure out where exactly you are in that spectrum. That's what personal readings are for. Everybody's in different places. Trying to let go of an old idea and just focus on the new, only so much is going to work. Some things will have to have alterations done. It's not a bad thing. But I don't feel like a lot of people start to do the alterations to do that until after Mercury turns direct. And again, I will do a Mercury retrograde video kind of combining the 2 months and all that energy into one to make that more clear. But whatever starts to prevail as the month progresses and we get to the latter half, a lot of it still stems from what happened at the beginning of the month. What happened in the Mars-Pluto opposition? What happened? What did we start to do differently after Mars goes into Leo? What do we feel compelled to show off? Because there will be some showing off that needs to happen. And in one way, shape, or form, some of that will come back to bite us in the ass. Be honest and integrous from the beginning. Lead from a point of honesty. Trust me on this. I don't know how many times I will say this to somebody, and then later on, I'm like, I didn't really listen, and I kind of told a fib, and dear Lord, I shouldn't have done that. I just thought it was going to be easier. Coming from a point of honesty is the easiest. It is the fairest. It is the best thing a person can do. The thing about this Mercury retrograde and the timeline of November and December, especially the last half of November, is some things will sound too good to be true. But I feel like once retrograde happens, Mercury's retrograde, everything will sound too good to be true. Everything will sound like promises, hopes, and dreams. And I do not think that this upcoming Mercury retrograde is going to be the best time to make very big decisions. But I do feel like it's going to be a time that's necessary to make certain corrective decisions, corrective action. Stay focused to the points that you know are true and that you can control. Stay in alignment with the energy versus reacting, because it can come back to bite you so quickly. There will be so many people when we come to the end of December and January that are going to be coming back around going, yeah, I didn't listen. You let the energy grab you. And some of you, you're getting better at recognizing whenever the energy is grabbing you. And I'm grateful for that. They're like, I felt myself reacting and I started to pull myself back. Some of you can feel yourself pushing an energy, pushing an emotion out of you that you could easily control and rein back in if you just tried. If there's a timeline of trying to keep your shit reined in, this is a good one. Unless you have picked the hardest obstacle course and your intention is to go balls to the wall. We're going to throw everything out there. We're going to reveal everything that there is, and we're going to see what's left at the end. And you better make sure your shit is in order if that is the way you're going. Because even stuff that you don't realize can affect you in a negative way, it will. And I am the pot calling the kettle black on that one. Because I've already been seeing how some of this shit is about to go. At least in my personal life. Okay. I love and appreciate every single one of you. Thank you for listening. Thank you for the shares. Thank you for the subscribing. Wednesday evenings, all month, I think even including the Wednesday before Thanksgiving, all month long, 7 p.m. Central Standard Time. I do free Zooms for everyone. You can interact with me one-on-one. You can meet other people that are my clients. We can talk about the energies. We can talk about things that are going on every Wednesday night, 7 p.m. Central Standard Time. And then also, if you want to book a one-on-one session with me, my contact information is listed in the description of every single episode. You can DM me, you can email me, smoke signals, whatever works for you, but just hit me up. I'll talk to everybody soon. Subscribe.